Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
So just as we're getting set up here, how many people have actually tried surfing? How many of you consider yourselves surfers? Okay. What? Bodyboarding? Oh, body surfing. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so for you guys, I'm going to say a lot of things you already know, but I figure there's enough people who don't have the experience that I'll do enough intro stuff. And I won't try to use too much jargon because I know that can lose people a little bit. So what I want to talk about is just a little bit about my story of how I started surfing. I got a wetsuit and 2 surf lessons for my 40th birthday. It's something I'd been wanting to do for as long as I can remember, but I never really had the opportunity to do it before until I moved to Southern California, and my kids were old enough that I felt like I could reclaim some of my time for my personal stuff. Luckily, I did have I have friends who surf, and I had supports, but I clearly, thank you. I clearly did not grow up with surf culture, and I clearly don't fit the traditional demographic of a surfer. Oh, I didn't start my timer. So it's been an interesting journey because for those of you who, even if you've just tried it, realize surfing is really, really hard. And I, picked up skiing pretty quickly. I picked up rollerblading back when that was a thing pretty quickly. I thought, oh God, it's got to be kind of the same thing. And it is not. It is exponentially harder because of the simple factor that the surface changes. Not only by the day, but by the hour and by the second. And you have to learn so much about the environment and how to read a wave. And then there's this added thing, which is really the focus of what I want to talk about today, which is that you're competing with a whole lot of really athletic 20-year-old males for the same scarce resource, which is a good wave. It's a scarce resource. And yeah, sure, ski runs get crowded and all of that. But this is different because that resource pops up. It's a 2-second window to get it. And if you're not in the lineup at the top of that peeling wave, you're not going to get that wave. So there's a whole social protocol and culture around surfing that has grown up around the regulation of this scarce resource. And that's what we think of as surf culture and localism and the whole aphorism around surf culture, which is really centered around locals rule, and there's a pecking order and a hierarchy and a set of people who belong to a particular break and a set of people who don't. And of course, there's all those social labels and hierarchies. Now, what's happened after the internet came along is people like me can learn how to surf now. And so this is sort of the tension that I want to surface because I think it's a really good example of the ways in which the internet empowers new actors to enter a previously exclusionary practice and community, but it also complicates and troubles the existing sort of set of norms. And a lot of what was wonderful about surf culture is sort of being denatured and destroyed by a lot of these technologies. So the site that gets the most heat around this is surfline.com, which it's not pervasive in all regions, but in Southern California, you really have very good coverage. I mean, there's a ton of information, news, photos, blah, blah, blah. But the core of what has transformed surfer practice is the fact that there's a network of forecasters and surf cameras. So that their motto is know before you go. So in the days before surf cams, you had to be part of the local beach culture. You had to be at the beach every morning. And you had to have friends who you relayed this information about when there was swell or not. And now, like any 40-year-old mom, can check the internet and know when there's a wave and a swell coming. And it's incredible the amount of knowledge that goes into this. So of course, sort of there's live streaming high definition cams for all the major breaks, there's reports. And because surf forecasting and surf science is fairly complicated, there's a ton of data, right? So of course, swell height, that's wave height, is obvious. But swell direction, tides, winds, swell period. These are the things you have to look at when you try to understand when your break is going to get a good wave. And so you'll see here, this is one of my home breaks, El Porto and Manhattan Beach, where it explains for any damn noob what swell direction works in El Porto. So you don't go to El Porto. El Porto is actually this is a bad example because it works on almost every swell direction, but there's a lot of breaks that only work on a north-facing swell or a south-facing swell. And noobs don't know this. It's the people who've lived there for generations and kind of know like the contours of the sandbars and points and breaks in the region that used to know this stuff. And suddenly it's become blown wide open and accessible. And there is no way I would have learned to surf without this information. So Surfline is amazing. I think Brady brought up. So this is my morning routine as I'll go on to Surfline and I'll scroll through my breaks to figure out which one is working in the morning. You can set up your quad cam so you can watch your 4 most frequent breaks at the same time and figure out which one's working the best. And then after your sesh, you go on to surfing.com where, God, I don't normally sign in, so, where you can get even more data. But it is, I'm running out of time here. Anyway, I'm not going to bother with the other site because I'm out of my 5 minutes. But, again, there's like for every session, you can log your spots and give you a detailed breakdown of what the actual conditions were. So, again, it's this incredible learning tool. And it provides that information, which was once very local and exclusive, in an openly networked format. What this has meant that the popularity of surfing has skyrocketed, the accessibility of surfing has skyrocketed, that the whole sort of local culture around surfing is breaking down in a lot of areas, except for places that have put in protections. Like most of Hawaii does not allow surf camps. There's a lot of exclusionary practices to keep outsiders out. If you read like surf travel, they'll say hazards, sea urchins, coral reef, localism, and you know which breaks to stay away from if they have a strong culture of localism. But the reality is that it's breaking down because it's not sustainable. Growth is not sustainable because you're inherently dealing with a scarce resource. So it's a really interesting dilemma of internet culture, and I feel implicated in it because I'm one of those people who would never have learned to surf before the internet, and I think it enriches surf culture to have more diversity. But on the other hand, it's really, really crowded, really dangerous. There's a lot of kooks out there now who shouldn't be in the water, and it's really the internet's fault.